Zach Wilson is showing improvement. All the Jet fans, all the press, all the writers, all the delinquents that don't understand the game of football has to understand that it takes a while for a quarterback, a young quarterback, to develop. Coming from a really small school, it's not a big school. BYU is not a collegiately top SEC school. It's not. He's not playing against the best of the best. He's playing against good teams, but not top talent. When you talk about Zach Wilson, I knew there was going to be ups and downs in his first year. You'll see a definite improvement next year. Definite. Then your third year, you expect him to become the star, the franchise, the guy that you want to build your team around. Because if he's not there at that time, he's never going to be there. But this team has played very well the last couple of weeks. Defensively, they've played very well. Their secondary, I love Michael Carter the second. I like Eccles. He looks good. He looks like a good guy that's coming off the bench and filling in spots. Bryce Hall, look at the wide receivers he stopped. There was a whole poll of top-end wide receivers he's played against this year and kept them under 35 yards. So you're seeing the development of him. Elijah Vera Tucker looks like he's going to be a great guard in this league. Elijah Moore, when he's actually in the game, looks like he's going to be a speedster, a talent, a force to be reckoned with. So to take shots at Joe Douglas that he hasn't found the right players and good players moving forward, you're wrong. Joe Douglas is doing his job when it comes to the drafting. His free agency has been horrible, but maybe that'll change. I mean, George Font has looked like a good signing for him. George Font was one of the best left tackles this year before he got hurt the other day. A top 5 tackle in the league for the money that they're paying him. So you have to be happy about that. He wasn't wrong about that. He's been wrong about a couple of things that has affected the locker room and affected this team. But the Jets, next year, they're going to be better. Any Jet fan out there that doesn't think that, then you don't know what you're watching. C.J. Mosley's going to recruit. He's come out and said he's going to recruit players. He's going to push players to come to New York to play with the Jets and Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson because you're going to have a chance to win. He believes in it. He believes in the process. This Jet team is not a Super Bowl contender, not even close. They're not even a playoff contender. But next year, they can absolutely jump and win 9 games. And winning 8 or 9 games could get you in as a 7 seed. That extra spot, look at the AFC right now. Whoever wins the AFC is going to either be 9-7 or 10-6. Could be even worse than that. Who knows? But you have to look at the big picture, and you have to say to yourself that this team might have it right. Speedy, I know you're not a Jet fan. I know you watch a lot of football. What are your thoughts to Zach Wilson? Do you see that the kid is growing? Do you believe that this kid could be the franchise for this team for many, many years to come?
The last month of the season, I think he's impressed in a lot of different ways. First, his throwing on the run ability, I think, has definitely been a lot better. He still has to get those simpler throws down because this is a very heavy motion offense and it relies a lot on short passes and the yards after the catch. So he has to start at least being accurate, more accurate there. But he's more accurate outside, which is the biggest thing I like when it comes to development of a quarterback because he was really forcing the middle a lot at the beginning of the season. And now he's trusting those outside receivers and outside routes concepts to work. And that includes getting running backs involved. That includes getting slot receivers involved. We've seen emergence from somebody like Braxton Berrios with all these other guys hurt or
they need to sign
COVID.
him.
Yeah. So he's trusting those other options and spreading the ball around more. So there's definitely growth. In terms of the Jets as a team, they definitely have a sense of direction that they're going in the right direction. With the draft picks that they have, with the draft stock that they have in the future, they could do a lot of different things with this team. The Jets have to think of themselves kind of where the Bengals were last year. They had all these young players all at once. You definitely have some promise with a young quarterback. Now, I'm not saying they did as well as the Bengals did last year, but they have to think of it like that because they're kind of on a similar path. They had a lot of veterans. They had to purge them. They had a lot of bad contracts, had to purge a lot of them. Outside of the C.J. Mosley one, that's really the only big one left. And they've made some of them work. And if they can progress to be kind of what the Bengals are this year, I'm not saying they necessarily have to win 10 games and do all that, but if they can show that kind of growth, that's the step that the Jets are going to take. And they have an obvious sense of direction. Even though Joe Douglas's free agency hasn't worked in terms of getting every player to be what they were, at least they don't have any bad contracts holding them back like other bad teams do. Like the Texans have a bunch of them, like the Lions have a bunch of them, like the Giants have a bunch of them. The Jets don't really have that kind of thing. Their biggest contract right now is Mosley. So at least the Jets have that going for them where they have leeway to improve. And in terms of competitiveness in the games, they've been better at that in the last month, too. They don't have to win every game. This season wasn't supposed to be defined by wins and losses. But in the first half of the season, they looked uncompetitive at times. The second half, they've at least looked competitive in the majority of the games. So that's a good sign, and definitely certain players have really grown nicely.
As far as the Baltimore Ravens are concerned, they knocked themselves out of the playoffs. They knocked themselves out of the playoff. A team that was a Super Bowl contender going into the season. A lot of people thought that the Ravens could be the Super Bowl champion this year. I don't know what happened to Lamar Jackson, but this Raven team is going to have to figure it out in the offseason. Is Lamar Jackson the future quarterback of this team for the next 5 years? And I know he won an MVP. You can't give up on an MVP because he was an MVP about a year and a half ago. He's got the talent to be successful in the NFL. But that game against the Rams, when you had to lead the whole game, you were playing great defense. To lose a game like that, it's definitely shell-shocking. Where the Ravens are is ownership and management is going to have to decide if they want to go another way. Maybe John Harbaugh has lost his voice in that locker room. Quite possibly could have. Now, I don't know. I'm not the judge, and I'm not sitting there as a fly in the locker room and say, look what I heard. But I think that there's a lot of thought that this Raven team has gone as far as it possibly can with John Harbaugh.
You wonder, too, if Lamar Jackson has always been another one of those mystery injury reports every week. And it always seems like, all right, this is the week he's come back, and then he doesn't play. They list him as questionable, and he doesn't play. They said he's a full participant in practice. How much do you believe that? And if that's the case, how much are you going to believe this coaching staff? And Lamar Jackson might take that into account and say, either you're going to pay me extra to stay here because you're giving me a hard time, or I'm leaving. So that can make it harder for a Ravens team that is normally great at maneuvering contracts and getting guys to fit and signing gem free agents. Now, if you're the Ravens, historically, you've been a pretty bad quarterback franchise. So you probably have to err on the side of trying to sign him as best as you can because, again, this draft's not great for quarterbacks unless you can maneuver a trade for one of the veterans, but still, it's not very likely. And you're built on running and defense your entire franchise existence. Joe Flacco was a solid quarterback. Right. It's the best one in your franchise history. So you really have to make that kind of thing work. And the trajectory this coaching staff had definitely didn't help.
The best game of the week in week 17 was the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
That game was remarkable. Joe Burrows made all the throws, and at the end of the game, 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, then they go on 4th and goal, and a penalty happens. Kansas City gets the penalty. They started all over, and while they went 4th and goal, Joe Burrows gets hurt. They bring in their backup quarterback. He kneels, and they kick a field goal with 7 seconds left and win the game. And honestly, Kansas City had the lead in the whole first half. A lot of people thought the game was down and out, and the Bengals came back. You got to give a lot of credit to the young kid. Joe Burrows is a star. He's going to be good for many, many. Remember, he tore his ACL, MCL, and his everything, and his meniscus, everything. His whole leg went.
Yep.
He came back faster than any quarterback we've ever seen, and now he's back to normal. He's taking the Bengals to the playoffs. They haven't been there in a while. They haven't won a playoff game in like 30, 40 years.
1991.
This is a great chance for the Bengals to come out and being, first of all, they're division winners. Who would have thought they were going to win the division this year? In a very hard division. It's not a hard division this year. I don't want to hear from Tyler because you have 2 8-win teams, 1 7-win team, and they have one team that's 10-6. That's not a great division. It's not as bad as the NFC East, but it's horrible. But the Bengals, you have to give them a lot of credit. Mixon is a star running back. Jamar Chase is Rookie of the Year. This team is fantastic. It's a great team, but that was the game that really stood out to me, Speedy.
Well, here's the thing, Zach Taylor. You got bailed out. That was arguably one of the worst coaching debacles. 1, going for it on 4th down. 2, the play call. Then your quarterback gets hit in the process where you know the Chiefs are going to be rushing the passer with a goal line defense. All right, you got lucky, you got bailed out by a penalty. That doesn't justify anything that you did. And now you got your quarterback hurt where he's not going to be able to play. Now, granted, it's a meaningless game because, all right, they might flip from a 4 to a 3 or a 3 to a 2, whatever, but they're not getting a bye. So odds are the game was meaningless. But still, that kind of injury is not going to help your quarterback. And there's no reason for you to go for it on 4th down in the first place. You lucked out because of a penalty. That doesn't justify how bad of a decision that was. All right, you kick a field goal with 50 seconds. Is that what you're afraid of? At least take the lead. Don't gamble on it, and if you miss, Patrick Mahomes still has time. Granted, bad field position, but still has time. Or they could win it in overtime with a coin toss. It was a shootout game. So really, really bad debacle by Zach Taylor. You can't be doing those kinds of things in the playoffs.
It was a remarkable game, and that shows you why Joe Burrow and this Bengal team can knock off anybody in the AFC. And I'm telling you, if they meet Kansas City again, I think they could beat Kansas City again. I think they have the talent to compete with the great AFC teams. So watch out for the Bengals. Are you ready, Speedy, for the free-for-all picks of the week?
Yes, here we go. So it's going to be all playoff team themes this week. So nobody that is eliminated. So the first game we'll start with, technically, they're still in. It's going to take a lot, is the Steelers and the Ravens.
Go ahead, Speedy.
And the over-under for that game is 41.5. Steelers at the Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens in this one, even though you're right, they have not looked good. 5 losses in a row. That defense has looked like a mess with all the 3 injuries out, but they still played well against the Rams amidst all that. I think the Steelers have a bit of a letdown after the Big Ben ceremonial final home game. They destroy the Browns the way they did. I think they have a bit of a letdown. Both these teams need the Raiders and Chargers not to tie and the Colts to lose, so good luck with them making the playoffs. But I'll take the Ravens in this one. I'll take them on the under.
I got the Ravens, too. I think Pittsburgh going to Baltimore, and I know it's Big Ben's last game, but Big Ben played and won his last game over there in Pittsburgh. I think that will be his last win of his career. But I like the Ravens in this game. Even though there's still a chance they can make the playoffs, a very slight chance, they're not going into the playoffs. They're going to have to decide what they're going to do in the offseason, but that doesn't fit to what we're talking about. So give me the Ravens on the under.
All right. San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams. The over-under 44.5 for this one. I'm going to take the 49ers in this one. Even though they have a question mark of who's playing quarterback, I think they have a good matchup with their running game and George Kittle. The Rams' inside linebackers and safeties have been a big weakness for their team this year. Their run defense has been not terrible, but still below average, where that's going to be a problem for them. And the Niners have owned them recently. They've won, I think, 6 of the last 7 matchups. And even with crappy teams sometimes, they've hung tough. So I'm going to take the Niners. They need this game to get in, and they will get in. I'll take them on the under.
I like the Rams. I really do. I think the Rams, they need this game because they can move up in the spot that they're in. And I like what I see with this team. I think they have Cooper Kupp, who is the best wide receiver in football. They have a good running game. Akers are coming back. Henderson, you have that talent, that offensive line, that's a veteran offensive line that can protect their quarterback. And that defense has played very, very well as well. One of the best defenses in the league. So give me the Rams on the under.
Alrighty, final game, Sunday Night Football. Winner gets into the playoffs, the LA Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Chargers won the first meeting on Monday Night Football earlier in the season. I think the Raiders get their revenge. And as I mentioned on the Sports Loudness, they do it for the legend of John Madden. The Raiders will play old school football in this game, run the ball against a really bad Chargers run defense, 3rd worst in the league right now. Josh Jacobs, I know, has dealt with some injury issues, but I still think he plays well in this game. And I think they can attack the middle of the field. I think you'll see a big game from Hunter Renfrow. And the Raiders have been very good in close games this year, and this defense continues to play very well. And Austin Eckler still not 100% yet for the Chargers. I think that's going to be a tough one for them to be able to get a balanced offense. So I'm going to take the Raiders in a close one on the under.
I got the Raiders, too. I think the Raiders are the better overall team. They've had a lot of ups and downs this year. They lose their coach. They lose their best wide receiver. They lose so many different, their cornerback, gun charges, just everything and anything that could possibly happen to this Raiders
now
team.
Another one with a DUI, too.
Oh, a DUI. I mean, they can't stay out of trouble. But they're still a good football team. They have Derek Carr, who I think is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. Give me Derek Carr and the Raiders on the under.
All
so
right.
those are our free-for-all picks of the week, the final week of the NFL season, ladies and gentlemen.